Hi, this is Ben with Ben Talks Talent, and today we're going to be talking about tricky interview questions. Now, tricky interview questions, some of you know them as trap questions, but they're essentially questions that aren't straightforward, and they're almost designed to catch you. And answering one of these questions wrong could mean you don't get the job. So today, I'm going to talk about 9 of the most common ones. I'm going to make sure that they never trap you again. If you are new to my channel, welcome, and if you are not new, welcome back. I'm Ben with Ben Talks Talent. I have been in talent acquisition for 11 years. I've done it on the corporate side, I've done it on the agency side, and I've interviewed and hired thousands of people. And today I want to talk about trap interview questions. So these are the classic gotcha questions. They're questions where it's not straightforward. It's not, tell me about, what you did at this role, right? They're questions where it's almost like they're trying to trick you. And I hate them as an interviewer. But I know they're so prevalent. And today we're going to talk about 9 of them, and I'm going to help you understand what they're getting at and how you need to answer them so that they don't disrupt your chances of getting a job. The reality is answering one of these questions wrong could knock you out of a process, especially if it's close. If you're in the process and there are 3 or 4 other great candidates, which today there often are, getting a single one of these wrong could mean the end of your candidacy. All right. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is, what do you want to be doing in 5 years? That sounds innocent enough. So where's the trap? The trap is that most hiring managers do not want to hear you talking about the role beyond their role. You might want to talk about growth. You might want to talk about development, how you're going to broaden the scope of your impact, the different skills you're going to learn. But what they don't want to hear is, I am making an investment in you, and you're already thinking past this opportunity. So that's how it's a trap question. You want to avoid talking about, well, I'd like to come into this role, I'd like to be promoted, then beyond that, I'd be looking at this. I just don't want to hear that. So a safe way to answer this question is, hopefully I'll be working for this organization. Hopefully I'll be coming in, I'll be learning new skills, making an impact, and see what makes sense from an organizational standpoint at that time. But right now, what I'm focused on is trying to learn, trying to grow, trying to develop. If you have things you're doing outside of work, this is a good time to mention them too. But the key here is to not spend the majority of the time talking about what you want to do past the role you're interviewing for. Hiring managers hate that. They just absolutely hate it. Next question. Why do you want to leave your job? Seems like a simple enough question, but there are a lot of different booby traps in this one. There's nothing wrong with wanting to move to a new opportunity. People do it every day. But doing it for the wrong reasons are a red flag to hiring managers. Here's what they don't want to hear. They don't want you to say anything negative about your company or your boss. If you say anything like, I'm just in a really bad culture, or, my boss is a bit of a micromanager, a red flag is immediately going to go up, and they're going to think, this person is difficult to manage, and you don't want that. So the key here, and it's pretty simple, don't make it about what you're leaving, make it about what you're going towards. For you, it's not about leaving your current role. You're happy where you're at. And you're not necessarily looking for a new role, but you've always been interested in this organization, and the role seems perfect for you. And that's what has you interested in entertaining other opportunities. But you're certainly not running from something. That's the key to that one. Next one. All right, so what is your greatest achievement? This is actually a great question, but I put it here because people have a tendency to exaggerate or give an example that isn't 100% truthful. And that's a real big mistake, because good recruiters use this question all the time. I've used it plenty of times. And it's not even about the first question. It's about digging in and peeling back the layers after they give you that. If someone gives me an example of something they've done, something they've accomplished in their current or previous role, I'm gonna ask a battery of questions after that. And if it didn't really happen, and if they're not prepared to speak to it, it's gonna come out clunky. So, after I ask that question, I go, okay, great. How many people were on that team? What was the duration of the project? What would you do differently? What was the outcome? All these different questions. And again, if it's not truthful, if it's not something you were prepared to speak to in detail, it might catch you off guard. So that's a trap question in the sense that you need to be prepared with whatever your most significant career advancement is, know what that is and be prepared to talk to it, because they're gonna wanna dive in and continue to kind of dig deeper. At least a good recruiter will. All right, so the next thing. This is actually a question I ask in all my interviews, and it's a question about how you function as a component of a team. The question is, what type of people annoy you, and how do you deal with them? Now, I can't take credit for this question. This question is from the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of Team. Ideal Team Player, by the same author. And that author lays out a series of questions that are all about finding a good teammate. When you ask the question, what type of people annoy you and how do you deal with them, you're asking two questions. You're asking about what type of people might you not function with, and then what your reaction is. How do you go about solving issues? So they're getting teaming there, but they're also getting information about your conflict resolution. And conflict resolution is incredibly important. So with this, you want to pick out somebody or a type of person that is challenging to work with and that anybody would recognize as challenging. So maybe someone who doesn't pull their own weight, somebody who doesn't take an assignment seriously, somebody who does not get things in on time. And then you need to find a productive way that you deal with them. How do you approach the situation in a way that's adult, professional, and productive? And that's what you're looking for here. All right, the next one. How do you define success? You probably are hearing that and going, well, Ben, that doesn't seem like a trap question. How is someone trying to trap me here? And I don't think it's as bad as some of the others, but there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to answering this interview question. Now, let's talk about the wrong way. The wrong way is if you make it very you-centric. It's about you. It's about me getting a promotion, hitting my sales quota. A better way to do it is to talk about the team, right? How could success be something that propels others forward with you? And that's just a better way to answer it. Some people might see, okay, well, they're a salesperson. Hitting their sales quota, that's a good thing. But there are a handful of hiring managers or a certain percentage of hiring managers who are going to look at that and go, man, that was really you focused. You didn't say anything about the team. You didn't say anything about, helping the organization move forward. The best way to answer this interview question is to make it something team related. All right. Have you ever disagreed with your manager and how your manager wanted to approach a task? Basically, this is any question. It could be that one or a similar one, but a question around you disagreeing with your boss. And how did you handle it? So there are two things that are just obviously terrible, right? One, if you have a better way to do something, but you're afraid to bring it up, that's a problem. It means you're not willing to take initiative, you're not willing to have difficult conversations that are to the benefit of the company. The other bad way is to bring it up in a contentious manner, right? Or just to not tell your boss and do it your way. Something a little bit of renegade or maverick-ish. You don't want to do that. A better way to approach this interview question is to have, an example of a time where your boss maybe didn't have visibility to a way to solve a problem easier. You in the front lines, you're going to have more information on how to handle situations. And there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I think I've got a better way to do it. So in an example here, you want to have a better way to do it that saves the company money or time or is more effective, offers a customer a better customer experience. And you want to give an example where you bring it up to your boss in a productive manner. You lay out, here's what I'm thinking. I heard you, but I think we'd be better served to do it this way. And here are my examples why. And then it end up in a positive situation. That's how you do it. It's okay to have disagreements with your boss. It's not like your boss is infallible. People are capable of making mistakes or having ideas that aren't as efficient as other ideas, but you just want to make sure that the way you communicate it and the way you solved it was productive. And that's what that question comes down to. Let's go to the next one. Tell me about a time you made a mistake at work. I think it's one of those things where you can't say I've never made a mistake at work, because we all make mistakes at work. We all make mistakes probably frequently, more than we'd like to admit at work. So you can't say I've never made a mistake, right? But you also don't want to say, I make tons of mistakes, egregious mistakes that are extremely detrimental to the company, right? You got to be in that middle ground. You got to find a thing that you did, ideally something in the past a little bit, so nothing too recent, but one where it's removed from a time perspective, something that wasn't of significant consequence, something that wouldn't make them question your integrity, and something that is no longer a problem because you have learned from it. So it could be something like, early in my career, I tried to move really quickly, because I thought speed was most important. But as I've developed, as I've grown, I understand that accuracy is also really critical. So I never used to double check some of my work. Now, that's something that I always try to focus on. I try to focus on double checking things so that when things go out to the customer, they're absolutely correct. That's a good example of a thing where people can understand it, they get it, people make mistakes, it's in the past, it's not an integrity thing, and you've learned from it, it's no longer a problem. That's the key. So let's talk about the next one. And this is another one I use. This is another one from the ideal team player, which again, if you're building a team cohesiveness is extremely important. So it's one of the things hiring managers are gonna ask questions around. And it's how do you handle giving and receiving apologies? This might be the first time you've ever heard that question. And it doesn't surprise me. And if you have heard it before, whoever interviewed you has probably read The Ideal Team Player. And it's all about your ability to communicate in difficult situations. Having been wronged or having someone wrong you enough to that you have to have an apology, I mean, that's obviously, that's a challenging situation, especially at work because it's supposed to be a professional environment. But if something has happened where someone needs to apologize or you need to apologize to them, it's obviously significant. The biggest thing about this question is just being ready for it. Because if it just hits you and you don't have an idea, you're on the spot and you're like, that's a great question, Ben, I have no idea. But if you've thought it through, it's quite easy. As a person who's being apologized to, it's important to show grace, right? I understand everybody makes mistakes, so I wanna make sure that that person felt heard and they knew that I was listening to them and I forgave them because we all make mistakes, and I thought that would be the most productive way for us to move forward as a team. When it comes to giving apologies, it's important that you took time to reflect it. You pulled that person away, in private, not in a public setting, and admitted complete fault, apologized sincerely, and made assurances that it'll never happen again. It's as easy as that. But it's a little bit of a trap question because it can be hard to answer. And if someone asks that question, you can rest assured being a good teammate is incredibly important to them. And answering it wrong could knock you out of the process. So the last one here, and then I actually have a bonus one. So the last one is, what is your greatest skill? And this can be asked a lot of ways. What is your most significant attribute? What do you do really well that separates you from other candidates? It can be asked in a variety of ways. This question is as many different flavors, if you will. But I think the most important thing to do is make sure that skill is something that benefits the company. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a question like that asked. I've been a part of an interview panel or I've asked a question similar myself, and the person says something that in of itself is good, but it doesn't benefit the company at all. And what a missed opportunity. You need to direct that, at the job description, right? You look at that job description, there's a whole bunch of things that need to be accomplished. How much better would it be if one of the things you happen to be really good at is one of the things on that list? So for me, that's huge, is just making sure that you're aligning it with the job description. Now I want to talk about the one bonus one, and that question is, what are you looking for compensation-wise? What are you looking for in a salary? This actually isn't even allowed in all states in the United States anymore, and I think in other countries there are rules and regulations about it, but you'll probably still get asked this question on occasion. And I'm actually going to link to another video I did. I'm going to put a suggestion there. And I did a full deep dive into getting the best compensation you can, salary negotiation, positioning yourself. If you have interest in this, and you should, we all work for money, I would say go watch that video. But here real quick, I want to talk about it. So when someone asks this question, when it comes to salary and strategy, typically the person who gives a number first loses, right? If you say, well, I'm looking for this, they're gonna go, okay, that's what they're looking for, and if we wanna get their services, we've gotta be somewhere in there. And that could be just a small fraction at the bottom of their range, and you don't want that. You wanna put yourself in the position to maximize the move. So as a candidate, I've always said, salary isn't the most important thing to me. I'm looking for, an opportunity to grow and, whatever it is that's exciting about this role. But I'm open to an offer that is fair and commensurate with the experience that I bring to the table. Something like that. If you just want to push it off, the other way to handle it is give a number, not a range. If you go, I want 80 to 100, your offer's coming in at 80, or perhaps 90. But if you want 100, don't say 80 to 100, say 100. If you want 100, don't say 90 to 110, say 100. So those are my two ways to handle it. Sometimes I push it off for a later point, try to get them to say what the amount is. And if I have a number in mind that just has to be in order for it to work, I would do that. Some of you are probably thinking, well, Ben, what if that's over the range and that knocks me out, of consideration for the role? And at the end of the day, sometimes it is what it is. If you need a certain number and they're not going to be able to meet that number, then you're better off being out of the process anyways, because, at some point, you're not going to be satisfied with that. So there it is. Thank you for sticking around. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. I release 3 to 4 new videos on this platform on a weekly basis. So if you subscribe and hit the notification bell, you'll always see them. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I'd love to hear which tip is your favorite. Which one of these questions do you find that you've had before or you thought the answer was most interesting? Please feel free to leave that below. Thank you for watching, and good luck in your upcoming interviews.